Whiteside County. We're not going to have you back in here again until May 13th.
Wow.
It'll be,
May 13th. Huh?
yeah, that'll be the second Tuesday. So
Better
the
mark
way
that
it works
down.
out, this Tuesday came early,
Right.
and the next one will be a little bit later. So,
That's correct. Yeah.
so let's get caught up. Planting season.
Yeah, I saw my first planter on the edge of a field. And, when I was a kid, it was amazing if the corn got planted by, I don't know, middle of May. That's probably when most of it went in. And now, especially in the southern part, in the sandy part of Whiteside County there's probably going to be guys going next week. Now,
that old saying, knee high by 4th of July.
yeah, right.
No longer,
it's over your head by then.
Yeah, I know. It no longer applies.
I know. Well, and a lot of it has to do with soil temperature, too. Some of these hybrids are now, they're bred to grow under cooler soil temperatures. But, 50, 52, you still need to get that there. It was, 30 or 26 last night?
Yeah, well,
but
actually a little cooler
was
than
it that even?
Yeah.
I know it was cold. I had a lot of frost in my truck. But, these sunny days certainly help. But we still need some moisture. I know some of the ground's a little gushy right now. But if you go down deeper, it's still pretty dry. And that deep moisture is what's going to carry us through the dry times in July and August.
Well, rain is in the forecast
I
for
saw
Wednesday.
That, it was only like a tenth, though, wasn't it?
Some. Everything
some,
helps.
I'm not complaining, but
Everything helps.
I know,
Steve.
but the problem is that, you get a little bit of rain like that, and then you get 2 days of 30-mile-an-hour winds and sunshine, and it's gone. So we need something to, increase that deeper soil moisture.
Yeah, it's something what the wind can do.
Well,
Brings
I did
things
notice
out in a hurry.
coming over the bridge, the Mississippi came up, so somebody had rain.
Yes.
It probably came up 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So that that's a good thing. And just as a reminder too, for those folks floating around out there fishing, there's going to be a little bit of water over those wing dams now, but not a lot. So be very, very careful floating over them. I know a lot of guys that have done that, and all of a sudden their lower units are in 2 pieces. So be careful. I know
Where's
other guys.
that oar?
Yeah, really. Well, other guys, what they'll do is they'll take a pass and they'll throw out, a float or something with a lead weight or even a concrete block on it, just to mark the wing dam, and then come back and start fishing.
Oh, okay.
And that's not a bad idea, just so you know where it's at.
SWCD happening.
Yes, the trees are here, or will be soon. Now, as a warning, don't go running in there today and saying, I want my trees. Wait till you get the email or a phone call saying they're ready. But I know I might even be over there this afternoon helping out wrap trees, but don't go yet. Let Blake get a hold of you first. RPM trees, I think, are coming in tomorrow. Yeah, but same thing, let him call you. He needs a chance to get organized and get everything ready for you.
Now, RPM, that's not revolutions per minute, is it?
It's pretty close, though.
Okay.
It's a root production method, and what it is they're potted trees. I think there's 3-gallon pots. Excuse me, sorry about that. And what they do is they expose the roots to oxygen. And when they do that, instead of getting a real long tap root, like most oak saplings would have, they get a mass of roots with a smaller taproot on it. And they grow really, really fast. And when you get them, typically a 2-year-old oak seedling might be 1.5 feet tall. These things are anywhere from 4 to maybe 7 feet tall. You plant about 27 of them to an acre, and they're really, really good trees. They're kind of expensive, but you don't plant as many as you do for the seedlings.
I see you've got some tips for us.
Yes. Don't forget, when you dig your hole for your trees or you're setting a tree planter up, you want to go a little bit deeper than the root is long and a little bit wider than the root ball is. And then when you plant it, what I like to do is hold it up, make sure the roots are straight up and down, backfill about half the soil in it, tamp it really, really good, and then put the rest of the soil in and tamp it again. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate as much of that air around those little root hairs as you can. And then after you're done, what I like to do is come back and put about a 5-gallon bucket of water on each one. One, that gives it some moist soil, but the biggest thing is it helps seal that soil around those roots. So anything you can do, though, to compress that soil around those roots is helpful.
Sounds like quite a process. I've never planted a tree.
It isn't really. It's pretty easy. It's really a 2- or 3-step thing. I lay the trees out first if they're the bigger trees. And if they're seedlings, I'll use flags. and then you plant the tree and come back and water. So it's really like a 3-step thing.
One-man deal?
Oh yeah, you can if you want, or you get a bunch of friends and give them lunch later.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. So yeah, it's this time of year. What I would warn people is don't put the trees in mud though. Make sure the soil is fairly dry. And right now you're probably okay, but each situation is different, so check on that. Because if it's muddy out, you don't get that compaction around the roots.
So regular season North Zone.
Yes.
What's this?
Well, it's like the joyous time of the year for me. It's turkey season. It's finally here. In Illinois, the 2 youth seasons are done. And up here in the North Zone, April 14th is first season. And I've got this is going to sound crazy, but I've got a first season tag in Illinois, a couple third season tags, and then I have a second season tag in Iowa. And thank you to my friend up in Jackson County that allows me to go up there and hunt. But those are the times, if you're walking around in the woods, be very careful, in Illinois at least, in the mornings. And I would wear orange. Turkey season in Illinois ends at 1 o'clock every day. In Iowa, it's an all-day deal until sunset. And I might as well go into this while we're here. You know, morel season's coming upon us too pretty quick for mushroom hunting. It's the same deal. If you do it in the morning, even if you're on private ground, I would still wear something orange, a cap, a vest, just something. If you're out there, everybody knows where they're at. You know, we don't want anybody shot. It's happened before.
That's a good idea, yes, indeed.
Let's see. In Illinois, make sure you only have 3 permits. And I did this last night. I got a new license online because your license expired the end of March. So don't go hunting with your old license. Otherwise, you're probably going to get a ticket if you get stopped. So.
And those are probably not real cheap.
No, they can be hundreds of dollars, depending what's going on. So, yeah.
So now, are you limited on how many turkey you can?
3 permits, 3 turkeys, bearded turkeys in the spring. It can be a female, but it has to have a beard. And I shot a bearded female about 5 years ago. I thought it was a Jake coming in. I was getting a little desperate. I needed meat, and I shot it. And I got up on it. I thought, oh man, it's a hen. But it had I don't know, probably a 3 or 4 inch beard on it. They're not totally uncommon. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wildlife planning.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about this. You know, what I wanted wildlife habitat. What do I do? How do I do it? And I don't know if we're going to have the time to go through the whole list here, but I want to hit a few things.
Right.
The biggest question I get is, I want more deer, I want more turkey, whatever. But, you know, that's all I want. And I'm probably going to tell the person, no, I'm not going to do a plan like that. I like a nice, diverse plan. And if you do a diverse plan that benefits a number of species, you're still going to benefit deer, turkey, pheasants. So instead of, you know, looking at switchgrass, a food plot, and maybe a few shrubs, we'd go with a more diverse seeding of native grass along with a food plot, more shrubs, things like that. So you're benefiting a wider range of species, including insects, songbirds, maybe some of the smaller mammals. So what I look at is, you know, what are the goals of the landowner? You know, what animals do you want to benefit? Okay, we can kind of tweak the thing enough to get better cover for them. You know, how much money do you have? You know, how much do you want to spend? You know, I could spend $1 million on 40 acres if you want, but that may not be a practical plan for the person. You know, they may have $5,000 to spend. Okay, I can do that then. So those are the 2 big things I want to know up front. How much do you want to spend, and what species do you want to kind of go towards?
How'd you get started doing this?
I've been involved in wildlife management since I've been probably 16 years old. I lived in a rural area, and I found a couple friends that actually had farms, and you know, they liked wildlife and they liked to hunt. And we just put our heads together and say, well, what can we do here? And we started planting shrubs. And unfortunately, back then, we were planting some things we shouldn't have, but we were trying. And you know, when I was teaching, I did a little bit with native grass. I had the kids work on it, and back then they were just starting to think about using native grasses for energy production too. So I was growing some for that too. And then the job came up at the Soil and Water Office, and I took that. And what really happened, I got, and I had taken some coursework on it, but a friend of mine was an ID and our biologist, and he was covering, I don't know, like 5 or 6 counties up here, and CRP was just going crazy, and he couldn't keep up with the workload. So he asked me, he said, you know what you're doing. He said, can you do some of these wildlife plans? So I started doing them. And, we worked together. I worked with the biologists, with a little bit with the Fish and Wildlife Service too. And that's how I got into it. And I had always hunted and liked habitat as a kid. I was brought up, I got my first gun when I was, I think, 8 years old. And I was pheasant hunting by the time I was 10. And I remember when you could go out and maybe shoot a limit of rabbits and see 4 or 5 pheasants and maybe get a couple of those too. And then things went downhill with one of the farm bills, but that's another subject. But that's how I got started.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's quite interesting, I would imagine. Do you have help with this?
Yeah, through my little business right now. It was funny, up until about 3 weeks ago, I was begging people for help. And now I've got 4 people. Plus, my grandson asked me the other day if he could do an internship with me this summer too, which is great.
Yeah.
Because he had worked with me a little bit in the past too. But I've probably got 6 really solid clients that if I didn't do anything else, I could just run the business off those 6.
So, okay, you say you got 6 solid clients. So, I
Yes.
mean, this is a process every year you come back and have to do something, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got it's more so in my head, but I've got a schedule of things to do, depending on the time of the year on each of those farms. Like right now we're finishing up burning on them. And in fact, I'm going to leave here today, take my good sweatshirt off, put on my burn suit, and start burning. And I noticed as I was coming over, I saw 3 or 4 big plumes of smoke going up. So people are already burning. We try to get done by April 15th with the burns. And then we'll go back to, a lot of taking out invasive species. That'll be the big thing for the next few months here.
Today might not be a bad day to burn. You're not going to have
great.
that wind.
Oh, man.
That has got to be treacherous.
Well, I've had one just south of Fulton here. We've been trying to get burned for probably 3 weeks. And every time we schedule it, it's either sprinkling rain or the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. Like yesterday, we were supposed to burn the place. And by 7:15, it was pretty constant, 15 miles an hour with gusts up to 30 by 7:15 in the morning. And then I looked at today, and it's a good day, so we'll hit it today.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's great. You get to work outdoors.
It is. It's fun. I enjoy it. I've been outside all my life. I worked in an office, but that job allowed me to get outside, and the job actually got me to where I'm at right now. I got my client base from that, because most of the people I work with are people I'd worked with before. And I had thought about this for years and years and years, and I finally got to the point. My wife was retired. My IRA in retirement looked pretty good, and I thought, well, if I'm going to start my own business, this is the time. So I jumped in.
What's the name of your business?
Harrison Natural Resources, LLC.
Excellent. So we got a couple minutes here left. What want to wrap up with?
Well, just a couple on the bottom there. If you got your plan, you've done an inventory, you're working with a professional, or you can do it yourself too. Now what do I do? Well, one thing is you got to make sure the plan's still affordable for you based on what you came up with or the professional did, and then you have to figure out how you implement it. You can do it yourself, you can rent equipment, you can have people do it, maybe you have your own equipment, or there's people out there, not me, I don't have a tractor and I don't want to get into this part of it, but there's people I can recommend or other consultants will recommend that can actually put the habitat down on the ground.
Do people do this primarily to have the habitat to hunt?
Mostly. There's a few people, though, now that just want a prairie. And, or maybe they like a certain type of bird. And so they'll plant the habitat for that. So I'd say 90% for hunting, yes.
How's the pheasant population?
Better than it was.
Good.
But it's still concentrated around CRP. If you have CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program, normally you'll have birds. The problem is the ag industry's changed so much and it's gone away from pasture and hay that the birds don't have that grass component that they used to have. And, a lot of it's fence rows, too. I remember when I was a kid, the fence rows were brushy and there was birds and, rabbits in them. And now, because of the size of the equipment, a lot of those fence rows are gone. So,
always great catching up with you, Dave.
You bet.
And we'll see you May 13th.
You bet. I got it on the calendar already.
All right, excellent.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROS, Clinton, Iowa.
FM 105.9.
And KROSradio.com.
This is Radio Iowa. Republicans in the Iowa House and Senate have resolved their differences over general state funding for students in Iowa's K-12 schools. The final plan includes more money for schools with high transportation costs and nearly $1 million so small districts can share more staff. Senator Lynn Evans, a Republican from Aurelia.
We believe it's important to be honest with our school districts about the state's finances.